Summer is my invitation to slow down, to savor small joys, and to reconnect with the simple things in life. They just moved the farmers market to this new location because of the county fair that goes on every year around July 4th. And I've never been here before, so we'll go check it out. And if I can get all the things I want to get here. I definitely want to get some strawberries, and then I always like to see if there's any other seasonal fruit produce that is particularly good to get. It's funny because they moved the farmers market. On the way back, I'm going a different way, which I haven't gone before, and it's these little joys in life that I enjoy because I'm going a different route, a different direction, different street. I like that, and not always driving the same streets. So I just thought about, so I can, on the way back, I'm gonna pick up my raw milk. It came in last night, but we were out with friends and it's Sunday morning, so I'm gonna pick it up now. It actually lives on ice in big coolers and it stays cold, so there's no problem there with the milk spoiling. I'm gonna do what my friend Amy does from the Cross Legacy, and that is soak these strawberries in a vinegar water solution and put them in a mason jar, keep them in the refrigerator, and they will last. I haven't tried it with her method quite yet, but she says they will last for 3 weeks in the refrigerator. So we'll do that. This method involves filling a big bowl with water and some white vinegar and adding all the fruit carefully to the vinegar solution. Amy has the specific ratios on her website and in all her videos on Instagram and YouTube. And I set the timer for 2 minutes because you do not want to soak the fruit longer than that because otherwise it might ferment. Then I drain it and let it dry on a towel. I'm choosing a red towel on purpose because yes, strawberries can stain and I don't want the stains on anything like that. While that's happening, I am going to go to our local library. I absolutely love riding my bike there. This is an Electra, I can't remember, bike that I outfitted with a battery. So it essentially is an electric bike, and I love to run my errands in town with my bike. And I love that this local library is an old one. It's probably over 100 years old, and I don't need to buy all the books that I like to read. I can just check them out from the library, and I just love being with books. Here's the book that we are reading for my book club. I'm hoping to pronounce it right, Tana French, The Searcher, and that's going to be one of my summer reads. Who doesn't like a good summer read? Hot summer days sometimes make me sweat more and make me feel a little dehydrated, which is why I love using Quince everyday electrolytes. I really like the taste. They provide me with potassium, magnesium, and zinc, and I'm going to leave the link for the electrolytes in the description box below. By now, the strawberries have completely dried, which is really important because you don't want any added excess moisture while you're tucking them away. And I'm adding them to mason jars. I could have chosen a bigger one, but I like these quart size and I have so many of them. I'm actually a little embarrassed to say how many I have, but then I never run out when I need them. There's a paper towel in the bottom to soak up some moisture, and they go in the refrigerator and supposedly live there for 3 weeks. I also love adding some wispy flowers, some peonies to my dining table. I just love that look. In the garden, I have my African lilies, the agapanthus, and lavender, and I'm always happy when I go out for a walk to see these protected birds. Are called Ridgway rail. They used to be California rail. They're really loud and they're typically very skittish, which is why I was so happy to see them, and they didn't seem to be perturbed by me on a little bridge towering above them. So I wanted to share that with you guys. In my garden, I have some quince here that I can't wait to harvest in the fall. And summer is also perfect for hanging laundry. There's nothing better than the smell of air-dried, outside-dried laundry. I wish I could take a nap like my cat on the couch. What's also perfect is making a cake that doesn't need baking in the oven. And this is why I'm making Kalter Hund, which is a German cake recipe that is a no-bake chocolate cake. And so many of you have requested that I make that recipe, and this was perfect. In a small saucepan, I'm melting coconut oil and dark chocolate. If you can find milk chocolate and like that better, you can use a ratio of the two or use all milk chocolate. I personally really like the dark chocolate better than the milk chocolate. Oops, there's a spoon failure here. And then I'm lining a loaf pan with plastic wrap. Yes, I'm not a big fan of plastic wrap, but every so often I use it because this really makes removing the no-bake cake afterwards so much easier. To the melted chocolate coconut mixture, I'm adding heavy cream, whipping cream. And what happens here is that it actually cools down that mixture. And the ingredient here that's essential is these German Leibniz butter kekse, butter cookies, butter biscuits. And I'm leaving a link below where you can find them here in the States. Actually, really easy to find. A little vanilla extract always goes a long way, and you can see that this is already solidifying quite a bit. The first layer, the bottom layer, is a layer of chocolate mixture, and I found that 4 tablespoons is the perfect amount here, but really anything goes, so don't fret that step. And then spread it just evenly across the bottom of the loaf pan. You also want to tuck the plastic wrap a little bit in the corners to make that cake look as pretty as you can. I had already figured out how many cookies I can arrange in what order and design to create a pretty perfect layer, and that is 6 in this orientation, which I had tried before with the cookies just to make sure what I wanted to do. A lot of people cut the cookies or break the cookies in half, and again, you can do whatever you want. The next layer is another chocolate layer, and this is about 3 tablespoons. You really want thin layers, or maybe it's 4, I can't remember. And you want those even layers, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just play with the recipe. It's going to be delicious either way. I'm repeating all these steps until all the cookies are gone, and ideally I'm ending with 1 layer of chocolate on top. I know there's recipes where you have a cookie layer finishing, but again, whatever works best for you. I like to spread that evenly just to make sure that there's no air gaps, which will look a little bit funny afterwards. Now this needs to go in the fridge for at least 6 hours or overnight. So patience is key here. And then one for the mouth. They're so good. I also realized that the blackberries are coming in, and that is why I decided to go blackberry picking. And yes, I always get scratches. I get red hands, but here's my harvest. There's some that are not quite ripe, but that's okay. And I'm going to add them to this same saucepan here, add a little bit of water, and usually I just go and do these things and don't follow a recipe necessarily. I also did something in the meantime which caused the pot to overcook, and then I had to clean up all the blackberry juices from my stovetop, but hey. I wanted to make a blackberry jelly rather than a jam because I prefer the jelly a little bit more than the jam with all the seeds in it, but that requires that extra step of mashing the blackberries and passing them through a colander. I also want to make sure I get as much juice as possible, which is why I'm moving and pressing and coaxing it a little bit through the colander here. The remaining mixture is perfect for your compost or your trash. In this bowl, I can see I have 3 cups of juice that goes back to the saucepan, and then I'm going to add my sugar. This looks like quite a bit of sugar, but not all the blackberries were perfectly ripe, so it's a good combination. And then my no sugar, low sugar gel, which I like, or the pectin for the jam. And then we need to boil it for about 3 minutes before I'm adding it to my jars. And you might know from other videos that I don't do water bath canning or pressure canning, and I'm going to link that below to explain to you why I don't do that. As a matter of fact, in Germany, where I'm from, nobody does that. My cake is now ready. It has completely solidified, and I can remove the plastic wrap, and I am so curious to see what it tastes like, because I don't think I've had this since I was a kid in Germany, when we used to have this at birthday parties, actually quite a bit. One little trick here, you want to let it come to room temperature for about 10 minutes, makes cutting the cake a little easier, and also you can run your knife under hot water for a little bit to make the cutting a little bit easier. And in the mailbox is my German magazine Landlust. I subscribe to it. I love it. For me, it's a way to connect with my home country. Before I sit down, though, I make a cup of hibiscus tea. Actually, it's going to be a cooler because the tea is hot. I didn't fill it all the way, so I can add some ice cubes to it. And then I'm going to sit outside in the backyard, take a deep breath, slow down. From all the things that I'm doing, I always have so many ideas of what I want to do, what I want to accomplish, what I want to bring to you guys, that sometimes I do forget to sit down. But with my Landlust, a cup of tea, and some no-bake chocolate cake, this is the perfect moment to just sit and have a quiet moment to myself. Reading about my home country just always makes me so happy, and I don't know, the photographs remind me so much of there, and so this is my little piece of heaven right here in my own backyard. I do have some cherries, and unfortunately, even though I love cherries, I realize that I'm slightly allergic to them, which made me think I can turn them into a jam. For that, I'm going to our front yard actually here and pick some rhubarb. You want to twist the stalks and harvest no more than 2/3 of the plant so that it can always grow back nicely for you next time. I'm going to chop that because the stalks are pretty young and thin. I don't need to peel them. If they're thicker, you do want to peel them because the peel has most of the oxalic acid, I think it's called, and you don't necessarily want that. So again, a saucepan, the cherries, I pitted them, the rhubarb, and here are my strawberries. They look perfect. Thank you, Amy, for the recipe. And I'm just gonna de-stem them and cut them into little small pieces to add them to this jam. My grandmother used to always make jams with whatever fruit she had, and I decided, you know what? I don't know if that's a combination that's out there, but why not combine these 3 fruits? Again, we're adding some sugar. Sugar will help to preserve it and also add the necessary sweetness to it. I also like a little bit of lemon. It preserves the color. It keeps the color nice, bright red. Sometimes jams can turn a little bit to the brown, and while that doesn't affect the taste, it just doesn't look quite as pretty. I'm adding my pectin to it. Again, going through the same steps as with the blackberry jelly, but this is going to be a jam that, again, I'm adding hot to my jars and no canning needed. In the evening, I like to sit down and write the labels. You can also download these labels. The link for that is in the description box below. Here's one of our cats. He always likes to check out what I'm doing, supervise my activities, and see if he can help in any way. The next morning, I like to get up early, and this is my morning routine. While I am boiling the water on the stove, I am adding my coffee grounds to my French press. One little trick I use with my coffee is I add just a knife tip full of baking soda because it cuts through the acidity of the coffee and makes it a little easier to digest. I also love to just start the morning with a full cup or two of water, sometimes warm water, just to hydrate and just to get my body going instead of having a first cup of coffee. The other piece of my morning routine is having some superfood greens. I love the ones by Quince because they are so affordable. They have 78 vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, probiotics, and superfoods, and they are so delicious. Even though it's green, it actually tastes really good, and I love to get that before I actually start with my first cup of coffee. To that, however, I am adding the Quince collagen peptides. It gives me a little bit of a protein first thing in the morning, and it's tasteless and it's really amazing. I love what I'm adding here. When I want to have breakfast, oftentimes I need to shoo a cat, but she's not easily deterred because she jumps back in my lap and sleeps there. But for breakfast, I have my homemade bread and my homemade jam, and this is so good to enjoy that. It's pretty warm outside, so I decided I'm going to do some project inside. This is my sewing machine, and I've been having it for probably close to 20 years. I absolutely love it. However, even though I know better, the last time I used it, I did not lower the presser foot. And I know better because this is what I have, this little piece of fabric here, and this is what you absolutely need to do. So it stayed up the whole time, and when I tried to lower it, you can probably see it's not really lowering. And what happens is you get gunk and dust and little dirt pieces on that. I know what the German term is because there's been a very, very helpful gentleman in Germany who's been sending me all sorts of videos and PDFs for me to look at. And so I finally want to tackle this project. So wish me luck. I think he said to go up here and, I don't know, move these brackets. But even if I push them, nothing moves. But I do see screws. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to open these screws. Is my screwdriver too big? Yeah, those aren't. That is not going to work. Let's see if I have. Those are really interesting screws. Let me see if I can get a close-up. They're not your regular. You can see all the little dust in there that's on camera even worse than in real life. Camera brings it out. Here's the inside. I'm gonna have to see if I have something that works. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to abort this project, and I really want my sewing machine. But they quoted me over $250 to do this, and I thought, you know what? I want to try this myself. We were actually able to open it and work on the presser foot rod, and I ultimately, with a lot of help, was able to clean it and to make it work a little bit better than right here.